The briefing argued a few things outside the presence of the jury. Behind Mesereau with the glasses underneath the tree is Bob Sanger, and he did a lot of the arguments, most of the
second. I mean, I really think the pressure of this, I mean, this is a culmination of his whole life's work into this one case, and I think that he's been radio silent. It's indicative that the pressure is built on him. I agree with you.
All thought the judge would put Michael Jackson in jail the pajama day, but he didn't, and I'm sure
Neverland Ranch is too close, so though Michael Jackson could continue to own the place, if found guilty here, he will never.
Event that Michael Jackson is just convicted of the lesser crime of providing alcohol to a minor, but not of any of the felonies. What happens?
Yeah, I think he walks. I think he walks out the door. I think he goes home. I think that he might get probation because I think the judge might find that some kind of case, maybe some kind of alcohol treatment, substance abuse treatment. Obviously, this is a person who's
is made in opening statements, but I think Mesereau made the only possible choice he could. In
audio of that we are going to be able to play for you, and we're going to be able to hear it. We'll have reports for you on what happened inside.
We received the official word at 3:15 that the...
This is an NBC News special report. Here is Brian Williams.
And good day from New York. We'll soon be switching to live pictures from Santa Maria, California. Michael Jackson is a verdict is to be read when he arrives at the courthouse there. His motorcade, as you see from this helicopter shot live, left his so-called Neverland Ranch within the past 30 minutes and is winding its way to the courthouse. You see, under police motorcycle escort, security has been and will be heightened around Michael Jackson and his motorcade, especially if a guilty verdict comes down. The fans have been gathering outside the courthouse, a huge group of them. Testimony. 7 calendar days of deliberation. Molested a 13-year-old cancer survivor. We want to switch to NBC News chief legal correspondent Dan Abrams, who has been covering all of this. And Dan, perhaps it would be helpful to walk us through what we can expect. What are the mechanics of what will go on after he arrives? And we see that now familiar arrival scene going through security and what have you.
Well, Michael Jackson is going to be ushered into a bit closer to the verdict. They will say yes, and then expect to hear the court clerk read the verdicts. You see there Michael Jackson's team arriving here at the courthouse. Expect to hear cheers at any moment from the many fans who are here. The first charge that they will consider is conspiracy to commit child abduction. The jury will then say guilty or not guilty. Then, if they do find him guilty of the conspiracy, they will then decide, do they find him guilty of conspiring to abduct a child, false imprisonment, extortion. From there, the 4 charges against Michael Jackson of molesting a child, commission of a lewd act upon a child is exactly what it's called. If he is found guilty of any of those 4, and the jurors find, here you see Michael Jackson is about to walk out of his SUV, and Brian, as I'm going to stop going through the charges for just a moment to just remind the viewers that this could be the last time that Michael Jackson is a free man for a long time. If Michael Jackson is convicted of one of the serious charges, of one of the felonies against him, he will likely be taken into custody immediately. So there is Michael Jackson arriving. There are those 4 counts of committing a lewd act upon a child. Those are effectively the child molestation counts. Then you've got 1 count of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a child, and then 4 counts of serving alcohol to a child with the intent to molest. All of those are felonies. Now, these jurors could decide, we don't believe that there's enough evidence to believe Michael Jackson molested a child, but we do believe that Michael Jackson served alcohol to a child. If that were the case, they could convict him of a misdemeanor. That would mean they've said not guilty, not guilty, not guilty Up to the point of count 7, if they convicted him of the misdemeanors, Jackson would likely get a fine, although it's possible he could serve some time. It seems unlikely. So if that were the case, that would be a big victory. Brian?
Dan Abrams, thanks. Tom Mesereau, his attorney, members of the defense team now go through to the extent that Michael Jackson's life has been a spectacle over the past several years. This trial, and we should hasten to add, there are over 2,000 shot. What we have here is really turned into a California spectacle with people running to the motorcade route across traffic, people holding each other on top of their shoulders to get a glimpse of the parade of black SUV. Jackson's father in the foreground.
The jury is polled, and it seems that there is some kind of a colorable claim that lawyers can make about, but my understanding is we are going to verdict once in that courtroom.
As you see Michael Jackson now go through the metal check, he'll be many hours of coverage.
Take against active devices as well. So they are prepared, well prepared. But Michael Jackson is now in the courtroom.
Posted as 1:52 Pacific time.
Did an excellent job. I think Mesereau is an excellent lawyer, and I think you have to.
And we're going to tread very lightly here as we look at the crowd outside, some of them using sheets of cardboard to shield them from the sun. Outside the courthouse there in Santa Maria, we to bring simultaneously the first audio we hear from.
Going to instruct the media. The jury has arrived in the court. Just can't know. And at this point, as we're waiting for the verdict, I have no idea which way it's going to go.
And Dan, weren't there requests from the jury in this case that the media were not allowed to know the contents of?
Yes, there were. Initially, the court was not some of the accuser's testimony. Was the fact that during...
You have covered this, by my count, what is it, over a decade now, close to 11 years. Very quickly, one question about security here and viewing the verdict. You and I should just listen in here together, in effect, for the first audio word we get. The judge is reviewing the verdict sheet, apparently.
And he's still reading from what I'm...
One at a time.
Brian, I'm
we
told
can hear our producer.
He is opening each ballot one at a time with regard to what's happening as the verdict forms are moving from hand to hand. But
judges have been moving more and more towards restricting
You've
them.
tried a lot of cases in California. How extraordinary
fits in this case, and from my experience,
every now and then you've got to send that verdict form back to the jury room to get some sort of correction made. So absolutely, he's going about it hurry.
Yeah, I think, and so that the folks who out there are watching know what we're talking about here. What that means is the clerk reads what the verdict is, and then in many jurisdictions, if you've been convicted, the judge will say to the defense attorneys, "Would you like me to poll the jurors?" And the purpose.
Joe Jackson defendant 1133603, defendant not guilty of conspiracy as charged in count 1 of dated June 13th, 2005, foreperson number 80. Verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of a lewd act foreperson number 80. Count 3, guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 3 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of lewd act upon a minor child, dated June 10, 2005, not guilty of a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 5 of the case, find the defendant not guilty of attempting to commit a lewd act upon a minor child as charged in count 6 of the indictment, dated June 13, 2005, guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission. In the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of providing alcoholic beverages to persons under the age of 21, a lesser. We, the jury, in the above entitled case, find the defendant not guilty of administering agent to assist the age of 21, a lesser included offense that charged the defendant not guilty of administering an intoxicating agent to assist in the commission of a felony as charged in count 10.
On every single count, it is possible that we will hear from Michael Jackson in just
all counts. He will walk from the courtroom. He could be back in his Neverland Ranch when court proceedings are over. Dan Abel, 10 counts, not guilty.
A clean sweep for Michael Jackson. Brian, at the beginning of this case, many here believed that this result would come to fruition. Most here believed that Michael Jackson would be acquitted. By the end of this case, after the closing arguments, as many were waiting here for the verdict, there had been a change in the mood here at the courthouse. And when I say change in the mood, I mean that includes the attorneys, the prosecutors, the defense attorneys.